Welcome to a Drop Tent Media production.
The Porcupine with Adam Nutter.
What's up, everybody, to the second episode of the Porcupine. I am Adam Nutter, your host. With me on my second episode, very special guest, super great comic, the co-host of Part of the Problem and the host of the Run Your Mouth podcast, my good friend Robbie Bernstein. Everybody, thank you for showing up, man.
Absolutely, thanks for having me, dude.
Yeah, man. Like I said, we were talking a bit off mic, and it's a bummer that we haven't really seen each other in like a year physically. And all the comedy we had lined up and stuff, and all that is just fucking gone, obliterated in the course of a month.
Yeah. I that's funny because last year in March I was starting to line up like headlining shit, which was cool. And well, it's a year later. Hopefully, I get back out there, start lining up some shit again.
I mean, and you said you haven't really been doing a lot of stand-up in the last year, and I haven't done a lot. I would say I've done a decent amount, as much, maybe like 30 something shows around there. But it's that thing of like, wow, you really forget how much timing is important to comedy. There's repetition and stuff like that. Because you go up there and you're like, oh, I'm so used to doing this, and then you just do like a 5-7 minute bit, and you're like, oh, that felt off. It felt like fucking weird. And you gotta go back and like, do I suck? Should I quit? Like, what do I do? It does come back. It does come back. So it will fall back in line, dude. So I wouldn't worry about the
I find
shit.
it's if in front of a good room, like I have material that works, and so good rooms are easy. It's the ones that are a battle and you'd have to win them over. That's where getting up all the time like really makes a difference. And then also if I really haven't gotten up for a while, sometimes it's funny when you've got a bit that like, I mean, like the shit you're noodling with, and then there's the stuff that you've told 100 times, you've crafted over 5 years, and it works. And it's funny when you're hopping into that one, you're like, oh fuck, I just fucked up that punchline, or because I don't rehearse my act. I don't I never. Yeah, that's not something that's not part of my process. Maybe it should be, but it's not something I've done thus far.
I'm always like again, a lot of comics are like, you gotta write every day. I'm like, do you though? Like, that doesn't work for me like that. Like, for me personally, like, I have to already have an idea in my head or something to start to write it. Like, I can't just sit down at a table and be like, okay, go. And like, I can't do it.
How many years have you been doing? How many years have you been doing stand-up?
8.
Okay, yeah. Me and you were basically the same. I think I'm 10, but some college, some Corona in there, so it's about my wheelhouse.
Exactly.
No, I've gotten really disciplined about, and I've actually developed some better writing habits through this, which I hope carry over. But I also might discover that everything I've written just isn't funny, because I've had that happen to me. But I try and write every morning, but like you said, I need to come to my computer with a thought that I had somewhere else to like play around with and write out or rewrite. If I just try and sit at my computer with nothing and like I can't develop shit. Like, I can find new angles on jokes, but so that when I have nothing, that's when I start reading the newspaper and just like tweeting, and then sometimes I start crafting from there. But yeah, if I don't have like something that happened and I wrote a little thought in my notebook, if I just sit down, blank page, try and craft something for nothing, it's like it never happens. I don't even understand how people have that process.
That's my problem with fucking TikTok. Is like, I have an account, and I made like 3 videos. One got like over 1,000 like likes or views, not even views. And I was like, oh, I'm out of ideas. Like, that's it. Like, because like TikTok, it's like it's so literally perfect for Gen Z. Like that, just quick, like dumb ideas just thrown out there. And I don't have that brain. I have like the longer form comic brain, where I'm like, well, I need to make like a bit. I can't just do like a quick 1 minute cut up video. And like, I know it's like, we got to keep up with the times, right? But it's hard. It's hard to change your whole comedic style just to fit a fucking social media platform. Like,
yeah, I haven't checked out. I'm a late adopter when it comes to tech stuff. I haven't checked out TikTok at all, which is not to my credit. But I have found from, I guess, doing my podcast, and maybe there's an arrogance to this, but I do think that once like stand-up's the most fun to do. That's all I want to do. In a perfect world, I wouldn't be good at anything else. I wouldn't want to do anything else. I would just, I don't have that option. I got enough free time on my hands to try and work on other stuff creatively because I'm not doing that much stand-up. That's the reality. So I write a lot for my podcast. But I do think you start figuring out how to, like, use your funny in different platforms. They're just not as much fun.
Yeah, that's my buddy. He's trying to do like this small YouTube comedy series he wants to write. He's like, hey, you want to play like a small role in it? He's like, he's like, you play a werewolf. I'm like, that sounds fun, like a comedic thing.
You got werewolf vibe.
Yeah, I have a werewolf
You got, like,
tattoo.
twink werewolf.
Get it.
Yeah.
I look like a twink werewolf. Yeah. so like I'm there and like I'm reading the lines. I'm going over. I'm like, nah, this isn't as fun as fucking comedy though. Like the whole time, I just kept thinking like this. I'm reading somebody else's work. Like I'm reading somebody else's creativity. I'm reading somebody else's thoughts, and I'm just sitting here, just being like, da, 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 da. Did I do good? Oh, you want me to do it a different way? Okay, it's like so not creative. You know what I'm saying? Or stand up, like I just like we were saying before, I just go out there and you fucking walk out into a room. It's like, it's 60 people there, and you're like, you know what? I'm just gonna fuck around. I'm not even gonna do material right now. I'm just gonna start picking on the front row, and you just have a good time. Everyone gets involved. That feeling blows away any other podcast, fucking acting, whatever. Like that feeling is so unique to us, I feel. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Not so much with the crowd work, but for me, it's more new ideas. Like if I got a new idea that I'm crafting and I get up and and it starts to work, or I don't know. To me, it's the thrill of the craft. It's almost like the most fun sometimes I have is just sitting at my computer and like coming up with what I think is a good idea. And sometimes I'm wrong, but like that feeling of thinking you discovered an angle. I don't know. I feel like to me, it's like you're prospecting for gold and you try and find it. Like that's what it is. Like, and when you find it, you're like, fuck yeah. And then you go share it. And sometimes people go, that's not gold. And you're like, ah, fuck, I thought I had gold here. But to me, you only have like those moments of discovery, like when you're getting on stage and you like, I don't know, because I didn't do well in school, but I did all my studying right before the final. And it's the pressure of the final that gets you to actually study. Mm-hmm. And stand-up's a little bit like that too, where suddenly you start actually just coming up with the jokes because you got the gig that you want to do,
right?
And then you're going to see the audience. You start writing for that audience. I find it all kind of ties together, but the thrill to me is very much in the crafting.
Yeah, no, I for sure. I love when a new joke, like the first time a new joke like pops, and you're like, ooh.
Yeah.
All right, and now how can I crack this bitch open to get more yolk out of it? It's like that thing. But just talking about, so I was talking about comedy and obviously us being comics and stuff, and libertarians. Most of our friends are fucking just lefty, like very liberal. It's just the scene we run in, and I'm sure this happens to you, but a lot of the times I'll just get treated like I might as well be a Nazi. In their eyes, so it's like whoa, you don't fall in line with this ideology. It's like, how can you say that about like government or like taxes or whatever? I'm like, well, what's theft or whatever, and they'll be like, oh well, that's because you're like an alt-right wing. I'm like, oh, all right, man, yeah. It's like, I'm sure that happens to you all the time. How is your best way to combat that, in your personal opinion? To try to get like that public discourse of like coworkers of like to try to like peers, like our peers to be like, hey, calm the fuck down, like just trying to have a conversation here.
I'm not that great in like group settings as it is. I'm just saying, like me, I usually like hanging out with one or two. I'm kind of like introverted, so usually if there's like 4 or 5 people having a conversation about something, I'm pretty content to not get all that involved. And so I don't know that I end up in that many combative like things. Where I will kind of hop in is if it's 2 or 3, or there seems to be a level of intelligence that people are actually conversing. But usually it's all based on particular topics. More often than not, I've thought about the topic more than the other person, or I've actually done some research on it. I'm just saying more often than not, people, I mean, to be honest, this is by design because I'm trying to work and kind of talk political media. I read the newspaper every day for at least an hour minimum. I probably 2. Sometimes I'm reading longer like sometimes there's a Supreme Court thing that happened, and I read all 75 pages of that.
Oh, wow.
I don't know too many other fucking people that are like putting in the work like that. So just more often than not, if I'm having a conversation with someone about this stuff, I've probably done more of the homework. And no one likes hanging out with that person. There's not a person in the world that when you're bullshitting, you want to sit down next to the guy who goes, well, actually, I read that pot, and like, oh, this fucking nerd.
No,
So
you want the actually guy pushing up his glasses, and you're like, get out of here, you
right.
fucking herp
No,
circle him.
no one likes that person in life. I'm telling you, don't read. It's not worthwhile. You just become unlikable. But with that being said, at least I'm pretty uneducated when it comes to fucking history. I don't know history. I don't know science. Like there's topics I know nothing about. When it comes to current events, I would say there's few people in the world who are doing more homework like in that than I am. You know what I mean? Also putting not just reading the stuff, but then putting your thoughts together to do, you know, three to four podcasts a week. I can spend 6 hours a week talking about what's going on in current events. So more often than not, like I said, sometimes I just stay silent because I'm really not in the mood to engage with people. If they care to engage with me, I can usually just and I don't go, hey, you're an idiot, or hey, like I can usually just ask a couple questions to kind of showcase the fact that they haven't really thought it through or done any reading, that they've just kind of accepted some narrative based off of nothing.
Right.
And then I find from there, I can usually inform them on some other information. However, people usually, because my information is so different than what they've heard, they just think I'm like a lunatic.
That's the thing is you could again with even basic like again like libertarian arguments 101 for us, like, you know, the roads or like the fire department, like shit that we could flip on its head in 2 seconds and be like, well, we'll destroy that argument for good. You say it to a regular, just I guess, listener of the standard, and they'll be like, no, I can't perceive government not being involved in the roads. It's like there's no other way that, and it's like, hey man, but read this article, read this book, and they go, no, and it's just that fucking wall. And then this is where I commend you, because you're like, well, I won't argue with them, and like I try not to, but as soon as I feel like I get that disrespect my way, I'm like, oh, fuck you, and I'll just go into like a fight mode, and I just get too combative, and I lose people that way, and I know that, and I have to work on that myself better. But like, that's where my dumb chimp alpha brain will pop up into arguments. I'll be like, you know, I'm like, well, actually, you should read like Mises, or you should read like, you know, this, or like Thomas Sowell, but basic economics, and be like, no, well, Thomas Sowell's a racist as a black man. Like, I'm like, no, you're fucking. And I get mad. I start to like get fucking old gorilla-y about it, you know, and like not. And I have to learn how to just be like, no, this is why you're wrong, or not even wrong, because even you say that, and people, you know, put the walls up, right? So,
I usually find the asking questions works pretty well. And
right.
If there's any libertarians, I think recently on an episode of the Shedcast, which is a podcast I do with my friends that live in a shed, they asked me just about minimum wage, and it was probably like a 45-minute conversation, but they just walked away like thoroughly convinced. And so if I don't know, I would say, firstly, if you're interested in why minimum wage laws are wrong, go listen to that. I don't feel like rehashing it.
Yeah, we don't.
But usually just some of here's the biggest things. Pointing out the unintended consequences makes a really big difference, because, you know, government, they're in the business of selling their services. A really good example is, you know, Biden's trying to sell his immigration policy. Ted Cruz did this. Ted Cruz is a fucking douche, but on this one, he did a good job, where he was like, the unintended consequence of Biden pretending he's being compassionate with his policy is that young girls are being raped while crossing the border. So like, you can pretend all day, hey, we're trying to be compassionate, but look at what's happening here. And so I find the biggest thing is to play, almost, if you can, play the compassionate card and go, yes, I share the same concern with you. Like in any category, we're not coming at it. They try and paint us into the picture like we're trying not to care for people, and that's not true. We usually just have a better perspective on economics and how you actually get goods and services to people. So it just becomes a function of, here's the unintended consequence of whatever policy you're putting forward, and here's how the market can actually better allocate those resources. It's really just 2 sentences. It's like, here's the unintended consequences, here's how the market better allocates resources, and then just a couple questions of, well, have you considered the following problem?
Right. So, I mean, okay, I'll give you. My co-host, the Cult of Us podcast, my other podcast I do, Neil. We were driving home from a gig last week, and we were talking about the Chauvin trial, and he's like, what do you think is going to happen? And Neil is definitely a progressive left dude. Like that's where he leans. He's like, what do you think's going to happen? I'm like, he's probably going to get off because they're going to fuck it up for sure. Like they're going to fuck it up. Like they will fuck that up for sure they will fuck up that trial. He'll get off. And then I said, and then the next thing I said was, it's a shame that all these people's businesses are gonna be ruined over something they had no control over.
Right.
And then when I tell you his anger went from 0 to 100 at me, I was driving. I was actually like thrown away by I was like, what the fuck? Like, because he was like, you fucking libertarian. That's what he said. He's like, you fucking libertarians, your fucking argument about like property. I went, yo, calm down, dude. I was like, we're just having a conversation. He's like, no, he's like showing me like Twitter points, and I go, no, I'm not. I was just saying that's a natural progression from this trial. Is A, he's gonna get off because they're gonna fuck up. B, or if even if they don't fuck, whatever, he's gonna probably get off, and then B, they're gonna riot. That's what's gonna happen. I was just following the progression of the conversation, and he was just like. Then I got him to calm down because I wasn't yelling back. I'm like, I'm not gonna yell at my fucking friend. Like that's the thing. I'm like, I'm not gonna hit this level with you. I was like, calm down. Like we're just talking. So I got him to calm down, and then he was like, there's things in place for the businesses. I said, actually, there's not. I go, what most people don't know. I was like, I think 99% of insurances don't cover riots.
Really? I wasn't aware of that. That's crazy.
Like most insurances do not cover riot damage. Most of them. And also, I'm like, you guys care so much about the black community, you say, but whose property is going to get destroyed here? The rich white guy or the black guy who owns Jim's Sports Bar?
Yeah, that was a funny one in, I think it was Minnesota after, I forget which specific incident it was after, but they burned down these, what's called dealerships. They burned down 2 dealerships and both of them were Indian owned.
Yeah, it's what a lot of people don't understand, and I feel like the left more so than the right, but the right doesn't really either. But property rights are like human rights. Like these people, that's their livelihood. Like this guy's family put everything they have into their business for a bunch of people to come by and go, firebomb, see you later. We're mad about George Floyd and move on. And then they're like, I didn't do anything. I did nothing. And then no one gives a shit about them. No one. They won't get help. They might get a GoFundMe, maybe, but probably not. And then if we talk about it, that means we're defending the cops. That means we're fucking racist.
And I guess it's also funny because what are you doing? So I guess you're helping out Amazon. You're going to wipe out some of the local competition. You want to ensure that there's no local stores in the area. Great strategy.
Well, that was also the really funny thing about all the government overreach during all the COVID lockdowns. Where they're like, everyone shut your business unless you're Target, Lowe's, or Walmart. Then the big guys, you guys could fucking flourish, but you fucking have a. And then I said that argument before to people, and they go, well, a smaller hardware store, everything's smaller, so the people could get infected easier. I said, okay, so then scale it back. So then they would have limited customers in, then less so than the Lowe's. But so you're telling me they can't open though? That's crazy. First of all, we all both could agree. I mean, we all know this, but like the Constitution got thrown out with this fucking virus. How many memes did you see? It was like of the founding fathers holding the Constitution, being like, just to be clear, none of this shit matters if there's a virus. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what's your take? Yeah, what's your take on that? Actually, the whole like just the complete disregard of Bill of Rights and Constitution because you're a reader, you fucking real smart guy. What's your take on the governors just complete being authoritative dictators in this whole thing?
I mean, it's a fucking sham. I mean, you already said it. There's not a lot that needs to be said about it. Firstly, there wasn't enough evidence of the fact that this is the kind of epidemic that you would like. I understand making the argument of, hey, there's something so terrible that we gotta throw the rules out. There's a disease out there. You go outside, you're dead. We want to protect everybody.
Turn to a zombie.
Yeah, like so.
Yeah.
I understand being in a disaster situation where and I'm not saying that they should do it or that that's the right thing to do, but I understand being in such a compelling disaster situation where you tell everyone until we can figure this out, everyone's got to stay in their home. And you start enforcing that because it, like you said, there's zombies out there. They don't know how they're turning into zombies. They can see the infection rate of how people are getting bitten, and they go, we need everyone to stay home until we can figure that out. I would still say they don't have the right to do that, but I can at least understand it. This was not that. This was, if anything, proof of the fact of why you would have these laws in place where government can't just go, hey, it's a disaster situation, because who knows when they'll do it. And in this case, it's not that certain individuals lost out bad, which I think is, I think it almost points to a fault in society that we don't stand up for each other against government. We almost go, oh, I'm lucky. Like I got lucky that government didn't shut down my industry. We didn't really get the backs of the local. I mean, I don't really have any friends who own restaurants, but I'm just saying, as a society, we did not get the backs of the random people who got fucked over on this. We just kind of were like, oh, I'm lucky, but that's what kind of allows government to, pick us off individually. So I'm just saying, if you look backwards on this thing, this is the perfect example of why we would have these laws in place, that even in emergency cases, government shouldn't be able to infringe on liberty. Because if we give them that power in the emergency situations, they're going to use it even in the non-emergency situations.
Right.
And what ended up happening in this case is, firstly, I mean, certain individuals lost out. They lost their businesses. They've lost a lot. But we also spent an absurd amount of money to try and pretend like we could get through this. I don't think we're going to survive the amount of money that was spent. It was also cover for the amount of money at the beginning of this that they gave over to, I mean, the only reason they actually gave us checks this time is because they couldn't bail out Wall Street a second time without giving money to people. They couldn't. Like, just the optics of doing a bailout for the big banks and not for, so they gave us pennies. Yeah.
Can I say though? But why? But they could have, because no one does anything in this country. Like, we don't do shit. We just keep getting fucking dicked down. But the government keep going banks.
They lose the narrative. They don't want to attract the attention of the left to the power of the banks. They like this woke culture. They like where their focus is. If they gave money to the big banks and nobody else, then you would have the conversation about the power of the big banks, as opposed to the current conversation, which is like, no, we need government to basically run in a socialized fashion where they're giving money to the people that need it. So it's going to the poor people, and it's also going to, the banks, because the banks are having a problem. So I think in this case, they would have had a PR disaster if at the beginning of Corona, people were, struggling in the way that they were, and that they were just giving over money to the banks.
I want to know how it's possible, how an entire, again, voting class of people don't understand that we gave literally millions of dollars to foreign countries for a relief bill, and we couldn't give that money to American citizens. And if I say that, no one, they just, again, they'll call me racist, or they'll be like, you don't understand economics. I go, no, I do. Why is it they just, is it really that brainwash? Is it really brainwashing that bad? Because, like, I'm telling you, I've had this conversation. I go, we just gave $10 million to Pakistan. So if we gave a shit about our people, why didn't $10 million go right back into the system? And no one has a fucking answer for me. It's incredible. I don't understand. I don't understand how. I mean, I guess I can. If you could control the media, you control the narrative, and if you're brainwashed to that narrative, I mean, how many people just regurgitate CNN headlines to you?
Right. Well, and in the Pakistani example, the heart of the leftists are in the right place, and that they're thinking like, all right, well, we gave money to someone who was poor. And so that's the reason why that argument's not super persuasive to them. If you can start pointing to the fact that it didn't make it to a single poor person, and I don't know clearly how much money we gave to Pakistan, and also millions of dollars is now literally, what is millions of dollars when it comes to government? Like, when we're talking trillions now. Oh, you got to point to fraud of $10-20 trillion. Like, fucking $10 million. You could give that to one guy to paint a nicer bathroom. No one cares. That's like not even fraud on the budget.
No, for sure. But it's that thing of like, when you try to talk to these people, you go, yeah, but like that money could have went to poor people here. Like, we have poor Americans. Like, why don't you want to take care of Americans first? And it's that thing where it's like, hey, we have Americans that are Pakistani. Take care of them. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why are we actually giving, again, no sense of money? I'm like, that machine just goes burr, man. Like, it's gonna run out. This inflation's gonna eventually happen. Eventually, right? We're gonna eventually hit another recession, probably. I'm assuming, if we keep printing money with the Biden administration, especially. What didn't they just pass a gigantic bill? Biden?
Yeah, so Biden came in and he passed a giant second. Well, actually, it was the third. So he passed the third COVID stimulus bill, which was the largest one yet. I think it was 1.9 trillion.
Okay.
Off the top of my head, I could be wrong about this. I think the first one was by Trump and it was 1.4. Then they had a big fight about what they were going to do, and it was like for 900. But each time they almost pretended like this is going to be the last one. Then he came in and he did, a giant one. On top of that, he's looking to do an infrastructure plan, which is like 3 trillion, but most of it's not infrastructure. A lot of it's like green energy, and yeah, I don't know. There's all sorts of like 5% of it's going for roads and bridges. It's got nothing to do with infrastructure. They're calling everything infrastructure. And on top of that, he's trying to get another like $2 trillion plan for healthcare and whatever else. The guy's trying to print more than anyone's ever even like without going to war. It's almost impressive to spend all this money without getting yourself into a war.
It's pretty. Yeah, it's wild, but I mean, he did bomb Syria right away. So I mean, they're right. They don't. I did see again pushing that narrative. CNN headline. It said Biden administration says that we might not be able to pull out of Afghanistan because it would hurt feminism.
Yeah, that one's great. We talked about that today on Part of the Problem. It's no, I think Dave's I think analysis on that is accurate, that they need to sell war to us. And like before it was, hey, they're coming for us, or American freedom or terrorism. Now it's this it's a better talking point. We're going to stay in Afghanistan over feminism. What specific women are you helping? What exactly is there, like a bunch of women being held captive and we're going to go fight one mission and we're going to release these people and then we can leave? Like, are we overthrowing their government and enacting new laws? Are we going to go on some cultural PR camp? Like, what exact fight with the military do you need to fight that you are then going to somehow solve feminist issues in Afghanistan? But they want to sell it to the American people like, well, if we just leave, then what's going to happen to women in America? You guys care about women, right?
Right.
I mean, that's the way they're trying to sell it now.
Man, that's really pathetic. It's really pathetic. But people will buy it for sure. 100% will buy it, right? They'll be like,
well, can you imagine? I mean, this is the way it works with propaganda is you repeat it enough, and
Right.
Suddenly it starts just becoming the norm because it's heard so often. So this is the first time that's been floated. They're almost like teasing that new storyline. But just wait till you're at dinner with someone and you go, "Hey, we really need to get out of Afghanistan." They're like, "Do you hate women? You must hate women." I mean, have you not heard about all the terrible things that are going to happen to women unless we remain in that country? And you're like, look at the cost of war. Like, the worst people in the world are profiting off this thing. We're not doing anyone a favor. Like, are you kidding? You hate women.
Yeah. It's wild. But that actually circles around to my other part of cancel culture topic I want to bring up, because again, we're comics. We don't necessarily fit the mold. We're outspoken.
Yeah, we were canceled before we started, buddy. There's no getting canceled because we're never gonna have.
No,
sorry,
we never got off the ground. We never got up.
You have to build your own thing.
But like, okay, I'll give an example of the whole Ellery Smith thing that just happened a month ago. I'm sure, I don't know if you're familiar with that, where she's a comic, she's a writer for, I think, Robot Chicken, and she randomly shit on Shane Gillis. She's like, whatever happened to that racist comic, and then a bunch of people were like, you know what, nah, we're sick of this, and they fucking went back to her old tweets, and she was just like, Asian people are whack, or whatever the fuck she was saying, like just wild shit. And then she says she got fired from her day job, and she's like, but that's okay, I deserve it. And like, it's like, no, you don't. As much as I don't like you, especially as a fellow comic, and like you're part of that evil culture I hate, and I don't like you, I respect you, I don't want to see you get fired from old tweets. And it's this weird fucking vicious cycle that you think guys like us and girls like us, one's being like, no, don't do that. And then even eventually people on the left, they're not getting like, hey, they just keep eating our own. Maybe we should stop this, but they don't. They just keep going and going.
She has hot 20-year-old, got her dream job right out of college energy that she's thinking like, hey, the ideals of this culture are so important that if I have to take a hit, that's okay. Because to me, yes, I actually stand by my philosophy that, we shouldn't make these jokes about Asian Americans. So if it means my job, but here's the thing. she doesn't know what life is without a job. She doesn't know what life is when you're not a good-looking 20-year-old. And I'm sure she also thinks, and she might be right, that woke culture is headed to a place where her martyring herself is actually going to bring her more income down the line. Or maybe she's got such wealthy parents, she actually does not care and has no concern for that next thing. You and I, how old are you? You're about my age.
I'm 34.
You're 34. Okay, I'm 30. I don't know how you make a living in life, but I can tell you it has not been an easy run for me. Having a job and being able to keep it is rare. I'm trying to break into comedy for us. So to me, that would be the most devastating thing in the world. I'm a little older than her, and I'm like, nah, I think you just lost something that was actually pretty cool to have, and it sucks that you lost it. Right. I almost feel like she's too. And by the way, she might be right. She might turn around tomorrow, get a better gig because there's so much money. And by the way, I think some of the money in the woke culture stuff actually pours downhill from government. And that, like, I think being on the right side of government, why do you think Delta is involved in what's going on with the voting laws in Atlanta? Do you think Delta, like, corporations want profit, but when Delta gets basically a bailout of whatever while Corona's happening, they're playing for a team now. So guess what? They don't really care about the profits of the market. They care about making sure that whatever Democrats make sure that anytime their airline gets in trouble, they actually get a bailout is happy. So if that means that they've got to get the back of the propaganda machine of the Democrats to say, hey, what's going on here is racist, because that's when it really seems racist. If you're just a casual observer, you don't know what the policy is about the voting law, CNN's telling you it's racist, and then all of a sudden companies are going, oh, we're out. You're like, oh, I'm not used to hearing companies get upset about something. This must be legitimately racist. Like, the optics of that play well. And now if you're Delta, you might be getting more profits by, actually getting paid by the government when you need your bailouts, you need whatever policy on labor law or however oil works and the real oil costs work. You know what I mean? So you might not really even be playing for customers in the market. It's actually more lucrative for you to get involved in this shit. I think that a lot of funding, and now I'm being conspiracy. I can't point to the specific evidence, but I mean, you can see it with like college grants and the amount of money that floats around in college and how much of it goes to like certain departments and that kind of shit. So I actually think for this lady, it could be. I'll tell you one more example. It came out like I think Jackson Pollock and some other painters of his era were actually purchased by the artwork was being purchased by the CIA because when we were competing with the Russians, they wanted to pretend like there was more demand for American high art because we were competing with the Russians. We want to make it seem like, listen, we're winning the cultural battle. Look how much money our artists are making. This is where like the demand is. It's for our artists. So don't think that government money is not infiltrating aspects of our economy for an agenda. So a lady like that who's willing to martyr herself for the woke cause might actually find herself in a position where there's more lucrative income coming her way, and it doesn't actually set her back.
Yeah, very, very possible. It's just I don't want to feel like a hypocrite. Like you don't want to celebrate.
Oh
that.
no, I didn't. Nothing I said was saying like
that
she lost her job.
I'm saying, like, me,
it's funny
like,
as much as I didn't like her. And well, here's where you're not really being a hypocrite is that you and I would say no matter what joke you make, you should never lose. Like you don't. But I don't like a fucking rat. When you start going after other comics, now you're in the rat category. So you're actually losing your job because the world doesn't like hypocrites, and you just got caught being a hypocrite. Like that, you know what I mean? It's like. It might look like you're being fired because, hey, I said, but no one knew that you did the racist thing. It's more that nobody likes a fucking rat hypocrite. You just got busted in public for being a rat hypocrite. And so, if I'm running a company, I don't want a rat hypocrite fucking hanging around. Now on paper, that's not what you got fired for. Right, but I'm just saying you can, it's actually like, I agree with you. I did not like that she lost her job. I don't want to see anyone losing their job over jokes. It's a bad standard. However, rooting for people not like you can have both things in your brain. You can have, hey, I don't think people should lose their jobs but if you're a fucking rat hypocrite, doesn't matter what you get busted for being a rat hypocrite about, fuck you.
Yeah. The comment, man, I'm definitely whatever. I don't care. I'll say it. I feel like again, bad comics usually attack successful comic. That's a trend. I feel like the whole Seth Simons thing, right? Like a failed comic going after trying to make literally like $1,000, and then he's like, I'm successful now because I make $1,000 shitting on Shane Gillis. It's like there's it's like a Dante's Inferno pit in hell situation for them where you're like, nah, man, you guys aren't supposed to do that to we're not supposed to do that to each other. It's that
Yeah,
fucking
I'm with my rat example. Firstly, I'm not advocating for violence in any capacity, but isn't that almost speaks to the ethics of the comedy community that a person can stab it in the back that bad and still just comfortably live his life without any concern for violence? Doesn't that anything show the actual moral character of the comedic community that you can, from the inside, bash it with horrible lies, ruin people's income, take their job, literally do the most snakish things possible, and yet you know that nobody's gonna like actually harm you or really go after you in any way. You know what I mean? If anything, it almost shows the moral character of comedy. But we almost need someone who would take care of him.
well, no, it is. It's the moral character of comedy. Also, let's be honest, most comics are pussies. like, like, okay, so like, I have an MMA background. I trained for 8 years. I used to fight for a little bit. I don't play this game of like, if we're not friends and we're not, like, you don't get to talk to me however you want. And there's a lot of comics who they just feel elite. Like this elitism with their attitude, and they very look down on you, which isn't a saying, what I'm saying? They'll look down on you, and they'll talk down to you. And I'm like, hey man, say this shit again, I'll fucking knock you out. Like there's none of this game. Like I'm not the guy to fuck with here. Like you will not disrespect me because like you could be smarter than me for sure, you could be funnier than me. I don't give a fuck. But like once a lot of comments, they get fucking mouthy, and it's a pet peeve of mine, a big time, because it's like no one checks each other in the comedy community. That's my point, and that's to your point. I mean, is no one calls anybody out for being an asshole. Like don't forget when Rogan called out Mencia, he got banned from the fucking Comedy Store.
Right.
Like comics don't like confrontation, but that doesn't make it right. Because the general group doesn't like it. We should do more of it because we got to get
MMA?
These assholes. Yeah.
Wow, you don't have that vibe at all, dude.
No, well, I'm also a giant stoner and I do mushrooms, bro.
Oh, there you go. All right. How many fights did you do?
Okay, so I fought.
Wait, before you answer that, let this be a lesson to everyone why you should never stir shit with anybody. Because if I thought anyone was like just a fucking pussy face, it was Adam Nutter. And this guy's got MMA background. So just absorb this as a lesson to never just pick fights with random people.
Thanks, Robbie.
Now continue your story. Sorry for that.
No, it's fine. No, you're good. No, I I trained for 8 years, but I only fought for one because I didn't really want to like take it any further than that. So I fought amateur, never went pro or anything like that. I have 4 official fights because I'm from Staten Island, and MMA was illegal back then still. So I had 2 fights in Jersey and Connecticut where it was legal. And then we had a bunch of like underground fights on the island and like around the city and stuff like that. Like we fought like legit Cajun stuff, but they're all like off the books. And
but that also means you got a ton of sparring experience.
Yeah, a shit ton.
Yeah.
Spar heavy. This is back in like 05, 06 when like no one gave a shit about jiu-jitsu yet. Really, they're like just fucking throw hands, and you're like okay.
Right.
So like to this day, like my stand-up's pretty good, but like my jiu-jitsu is like eh. And my wrestling is like, eh. Like I'm not great on the ground, but I'm better than the average person. So like, but yeah. So that's a thing that always bothers me in the comedy community, where it's like, hey man, don't run your fucking mouth, because I will absolutely handle that for you. It's not an issue. There's no issue here with me. So that's the thing I hate in our scene. That's very fucking annoying. Yeah. So we can start wrapping up, dude. It's pretty much covered all the things I wanted to get to you with. Tell everybody where they can find you or your podcast, where you got coming up, your social media, all that jazz.
Hell yeah. Robbie the Fire. If you like, usually most mornings 9 a.m. I read the newspaper, I tweet out some jokes, and check out the Run Your Mouth podcast, and those are the good things. Also part of the problem, but you probably already that was good too. But you probably already know about it.
I'm sure you guys know that. And if you have any show dates coming up.
Yeah, I got to get them up on my website. But if you're out in Texas, Childerberg, and if you're out in Portland, Going to be doing a show at the whatever convention out there.
Nice. Go follow Robbie. He's a very funny comic. Great on Part of the Problem and Run Your Mouth podcast, everybody. So go give those a sub. You guys can follow me at Adam Nutter, Twitter, Facebook, Adam Nutter Comedy on. I'm sorry, Twitter and Instagram at Adam Nutter and Adam Nutter Comedy on Facebook and TikTok. I'll be in Staten Island May 4th at Little Victory Theater. Come on out to that. Tickets are available soon. I'll throw it up on my link. I got other shit coming up too. Hopefully getting those rooftop shows in Philly going with Neil. Go to droptent.com for all of my other podcasts. Cult of Us, Slapstick Sports. You guys get it. All right, Robbie, again, thank you for coming on, everybody. Peace.
Thanks for listening. Find Adam on social media, Twitter and IG at Adam Nutter, or Facebook and TikTok at Adam Nutter Comedy. And for podcasts and merch, check out www.droptent.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.